Hello there, everyone. I've made my grand return to YouTube to make a guide on how to play this marvelous guy known as Gambit. I've played Gambit a lot, just a little bit. Don't mind the little moving icon at the bottom left, but he's really fun, and I wanted to, give other people a chance to pick him up because he's definitely one of the more complicated characters to say in the game. Like, on paper, it seems like a character where you can just spam ultimate and then win, but, like, he's got a lot more going for him. So I wanted to, enlighten everyone as to how to properly play Gambit. Apologies if I'm a little slow at this. I haven't talked in front of a microphone by myself in ages, but I'll work with it. I'll split it into a couple sections and make things as easy as possible. Alright, so first off, I'm just gonna run through his entire kit real quick, because there's a lot to there's a lot to go over here. So starting with his primary fire, it's a support primary. It shoots in a shotgun. It fires 3 cards. You don't have to hit all of them actually, so you can literally just shoot one of them, and also I think if you back up in that, yeah, you can hit 2 targets at once, so it's kind of cool that you can just kind of, if you're playing far back enough, you can distribute heals to, like, your entire team if they're playing it right, but also, it does damage. Pretty good amount of damage, actually, so you can actually fight things, you're not just a sitting duck, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward as far as strategist primaries go. Next up, we got his right click, his little slam. It does a decent chunk of damage to people, and also, if I could take some damage, it applies self-heal. Now, before the nerf to the couple nerfs now, I think he's done 2 now, this used to do a lot more self-healing. It doesn't do nearly as much anymore. It also doesn't kill your team as much anymore. It used to deal a decent amount, but now it's kind of just, if in case you need a burst heal, you can kind of just pop it. That's what I do, but, like, it's nothing too crazy anymore like it used to be. And it's definitely really good if you want to just deal some... if you want to deal a bit of damage real quick. Like, wow, that was with the damage boost, and it did like half of that guy's health bar. So it's definitely more of an offensive tool now, I'd say. So the normal left shift, the dash, the occasion charge, or whatever, it's not that great on its own. Like, it does a decent amount of dashing and distance, but it's not going to do too much on its own. What you're really going to want to do is do the dash and then combo the right click together to do that. What is it, the big easy impact? Yeah, so when you do the big easy impact, it basically does... let's call it like a BP dash, but I haven't played BP, so I don't really know. But basically, your initial dash is locked into one direction, but once you do that right click, you can go in whatever direction you want. So you can just spin around like a fucking madman however you want. It's a great movement tool, and it's basically your one get out of jail free card. Like, if you're getting doped by someone, and you're just getting absolutely fucked, bam! You just dash away onto high ground or something, or go back to your team. It's a phenomenal movement ability. On top of that, it does damage. Now, it's not a really significant amount of damage, so I would not recommend using it to actually go for kills, unless I've done this in a few situations. If there's like a Doctor Strange or like a shield character that's trying to get away and flying away from you, you can just quickly click, boom, and then they're dead, because it goes through shields, which is pretty nice. So it can be used as a finishing tool, but there's better options, honestly. Alright, so here's where we get to the somewhat complicated stuff. His deck of cards is... There's 2 ways to go about it. So one of them is your Healing Hearts. When you pop that, it starts doing healing over time, and it gives you the option to use 2 abilities. Also, I forgot to mention, don't mind the bindings. I have the 2 decks bound to my mouse buttons. I think it's normally E and F is probably what it is normally. I don't know. I changed that on day 1 just because I like using mouse buttons. But anyways, with the Healing Hearts, you can either do the raise or the flush. Now, I'll start with the raise. So the raise, you're really only ever going to use in emergency situations like this. It's really good at getting your squishies back to full health, like, immediately, because it gives burst heal, it bounces off of everyone, and it gives healing over time, like it was a C&D wall or something. So I realize now as I was editing this, I said it gives healing over time. It actually just gives increased healing. It's a very great tool for emergency situations when your team is being stupid and taking a lot of damage, and you just quickly pop that, boom, 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 they're back to full health. No big deal. Now, again, before the nerf, this used to be so much better and made Gambit pretty much the best, like, healer in the game. Not even just strategist, healer, because his healing output with this raise was just so high. The burst heal, I think it did like 5 bounces on the same target, so you could get a tank that was on basically no HP back to full HP instantly. Now, it doesn't do that anymore, which probably how it should be, but it's still a great tool for helping out your team in those bad situations. Now, the flush is, it's something. It is extremely good. It cleanses basically every CC in the game. I could try to generate a list of everything in editing. I'll see what I can do, but it cleanses a lot of things. Another nice little thing about the flush is it actually also does a burst heal. So along with cleansing, it also gives your team a little bit, and this is great for situations where this spot's gonna do damage. In situations where you're taking a lot of damage and you need to get out of there fast, but you don't have your movement abilities or your right click, you can just, first of all, pop your healing hearts to get the heals, and then if you look down and do the cleanse, you get all of the darts, or cards, sorry, and you'll get a decent chunk of health back. So it's a nice little burst heal in emergency situations. I don't use it too often, unless like I'm getting doped by a diver and getting screwed over, then I can just kind of pop this and then quickly get back to the team at a decent amount of health, but yeah. And then on the other side of things, we have the Breaking Spades deck, which basically, first off, as soon as you pop it, Gambit gets a damage boost instantly. I think it's a 10% damage boost now, but it used to be 15, but then they nerfed it, which, fine, whatever. It's so sad, but yeah, it instantly gives you a damage boost, so all it takes is one card, and you can just start throwing out damage like it's nothing. But the best part about this damage increase is once you start using the other abilities. So first of all, we have the Flush, which is basically the reverse of the flush from the healing. The healing one is a cleanse, but with the damage, it just does a giant burst of cards all around you. I don't use this too often. I mean, it does a decent amount of damage, but I forgot to say it does knock back enemies too. So like in an emergency situation, if you're getting dove or something, you can just use it to like scare off the diver. Actually, that's really the only time I ever use this, the flush ability on the damage side, is if I'm getting dove, because it does knock them back and it kind of screws up their entire dive. Very nice for anti-dive, but other than that, I mean, sometimes during Gambit ult, when I have that damage boost, I'll use it as like a finishing move or such, but honestly, when you're using the Spades deck, what you're really going to be using is the Raise, and my god, I love this ability so much. It does splash damage, provides an anti-heal, and it does a pretty damn good amount of damage. So this is going to be your main finishing tool when you're playing more aggressive on Gambit, or if your team is actually, you know, playing together as a team, which, let's face it, doesn't happen as much as I'd like to in this game. You can actually enable your divers and DPS by getting a nice little angle and just slapping down an anti-heal, bam, they're cooked. Because if you have divers following up with that, there is basically nothing they can do. It is an amazing tool, and basically what Blade's anti-heal should have been, but yeah, I love using it to help my team, and I also love using it to get cheeky kills. So, for the last part of Gambit's kit, we have the Raged Royal Flush, and my god, this thing just does literally everything. I mean, off the bat, you get a burst heal and healing over time. You also get a 30% increase in ult charge for whoever is caught in the ult. On top of that, you also get a movement and jump boost, as well as a damage boost. So, this ultimate does literally everything. I mean, you don't get much more of an offensive ult than this. It is basically a giant signal for your team to just press the W key. Like, Oh my god, it's so good. Like, almost too good. Actually, scratch that. It is too good. There's way too much going on with this thing. But basically, when you pop this, you just want your team to press W and win the team fight. Like, there's no other explanation than that. But there are a couple things you can do to counter this ultimate. First of all, just being a simple cloak and dagger roll. I don't know what it is about cloak and dagger roll, but I guess the heals on that ultimate are just so absurd to where it just makes Gambit ult do nothing. Luckily, if you have a Magneto who's insanely good at the game, that shouldn't be a problem because he just hits a dunk and then that's it. The other way you can counter a Gambit ult is, who would have thought, with another Gambit ult. Essentially, when one Gambit pops a Gambit ult, he is signaling his team to press the W key and take as much space as possible. When that happens and you are in a fight with another Gambit, what you're going to want to do is get your team to press, like, just back up a little bit, and then once their team has taken a little bit of space, you pop your ult, and then you basically counteract that space that they just took. It's just a giant turf war between two Gambits, and you want to be the Gambit that comes out on top. It's kind of fun, but also kind of annoying at the same time, because if you're on defense, you're basically just waiting for their Gambit to pop the ult, so then you can pop yours and steamroll them back. It's a whole cycle, but yeah, that's pretty much it for Gambit's kit. Okay, so in an ideal world, when you're playing Gambit, you want to be able to do 50-50 as far as healing and damage goes, because obviously he does a lot of heals, but he can also do a lot of damage. So the goal is to balance out the two of those. However, I'm going to be fully honest with you, that will never, not never, I should say, it does happen in perfect games, you know, you can do that, but most of the time, you're going to have to adapt to how your team is playing and how the enemy team is playing, which, that's where we go into a few different playstyles with Gambit. So, the first one is obviously the main support. If you have, like, a Jeff or a Rocket, or if you're running Trips up and it's, like, Adam and Ultron, let's say these supports that don't exactly have the greatest healing output and are more focused on damage, you're gonna be the main healer for the team, which is fine. Gambit has a lot of healing. As I covered earlier, I mean, the bridge boost just a lot of burst heals. It makes you heal your entire team a very good amount. And then his primary fire alone, I mean, if you're standing right next to one of your teammates, like, you know, you can heal someone to full health in like 3 shots, so you have plenty of healing to go. It's not the most entertaining playstyle, but it is definitely very effective at keeping your team up. As far as when you're playing, you know, the main healer Gambit, I'd say you want to be positioned around like 15-20 meters from your front line, because that gives you the most space to like react to divers or move up with your team if they're pressing W or retreat. Like, you can kind of gauge how the fight is going from that distance, and it's also like the ideal, like you can see from here, I'm hitting pretty much all of my cards, and granted these are bots that are just standing still, but like if you want to heal, this is about the ideal range. And then, you know, if it's an emergency, you pop your bridge boost, or let's say, you know, there's a strange that comes in and your invis couldn't push it, you know, you can go in, boom, cleanse, they're saved, and then get back out and you're fine. So this is, you know, the kind of Gambit you're going to be playing if you're focused on the heal stat. If your team is taking a lot of damage and your other support isn't healing very much. Now, the other side of things is if you have a C&D or an Invis or a Luna or any of these like high healing output main supports. This is where you get to be creative. And I like to call it sort of like DPS Gambit, but not really, because you're still going to be healing. Like, you're not just going to be... You're not going to be, like, just strictly dealing damage, but you're also, like, you're not restricted to not dealing damage. So you can feel free to go for picks and, you know, kind of use your more damage-based abilities if you're going on this more damage-focused Gambit, because you can trust your other support. Now, when, how do I word this? When I am playing the more damage-based Gambit, I like to look for off angles and such, and take high ground, or that kind of thing, to where you can kind of deal damage but also heal your team at the same time if needed. It's just nice to have the fucking hell, I can't speak. The variety slapped in there. You know, like, you can heal your team and then go, like, if you see a DPS or a support out of position, you can dash in and go for the pick. It's kind of like you have the freedom to be this creative character and adapt to the situation. Now, as far as DPS Gambit goes, there used to be a lot of cool combos you could do with all the dashes and stuff, but they did actually nerf his damage output. It went from, like, I think the Spade's damage boost went from like 15% to 10%, and on paper it doesn't seem like a lot, but that used to kill. So, I mean, it's pretty significant. So, if you are just gonna go for damage, I mean, I wouldn't focus on any crazy combos with the dashes or anything. Quite literally, just hit your shots. Boom, 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 boom. That's kill. Or, even, you can do just 2, 3, and then finish it off with you know, like the burst damage from the anti-kill. So, like, there's a lot of ways you can secure kills with Gambit. Just get creative, honestly. Like, you can kill with dashes too if you're feeling lucky and a little risky, because if you use the dash, like, you know, you're now a sitting duck, but it can also secure a kill. So literally just, you know, feel free to do whatever you want on Gambit. This guy has so much stuff he can do. Now, the last thing I want to go over real quick before I get into some small little tips and tricks and stuff is how exactly do you win 1v1s with Gambit? Because, honestly, this guy is arguably one of the best 1v1 characters in the game. He has so much shit going on, because if you take damage, you know, you can just pop a healing card and, you know, you get healing over time. You know, you can heal yourself with your little cleanse burst heal. But you also have damage dealing abilities, so you basically have the flexibility to do anything you want in a 1v1 with another character. So, let's say, like, a Magic or a Daredevil is coming in to dive you, right? And you're taking an off angle with Gambit because you get to play the more damage-focused playstyle. You don't have to give up that off angle. You can, like, sure, you can run back to your team and, you know, get healed by your other support, but why do that? You're John Gambit, like, you are him. You can win the 1v1. So, first of all, if you're at full health, you know, you can pop the damage boost, and you can, if they're engaging with the dive, you can throw them off by doing your little, it's the best way for me to describe this, your little dash. So you throw them off like that, you start poking at them like this, and if you get them low enough, you can finish them off with the raise. So that's just one way to go about it. Or if they are just straight up jumping you all over you, you can, and you're taking a lot of damage, you can start using your sustain abilities. So you can pop a healing card and you can still deal damage, right? They're dealing damage to you. Oh, guess what? You can use your right click to heal yourself. Oh, another right click, and by now, since they're probably away from their team and you've been dealing damage to them this whole time, they have to either run away or they stick to the fight and then you win. So basically, there's almost no reason you should lose in a 1v1 with Gambit. The problem arises in, like, a 2v1 situation or a 3v1 situation. Don't think you're him in that situation. You are not winning the 3v1. Your best option is, quite literally, run like a little bitch and get back to your team. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Gambit is strong, but he's not that strong. Your best tools are essentially able to get you out of any bad situation. So don't feel afraid to go take 1v1s, but also don't get too overconfident and then think you can just 1v6 the entire team. Because you are, at the end of the day, still a strategist. Like, and even then, no character in this game can 1v6. So just be careful, be mindful of your positioning, you know, make sure you're not too far from your team, unless you're playing full-on dive Gambit, which I could make a full other video on that. It's such a fun playstyle. But yeah, just be careful, but also don't be afraid to take 1v1s, because odds are, if you take the 1v1, you're gonna come out on top. Alright, so a couple tips and tricks when it comes to Gambit. There's a few small things I forgot to mention. So first of all, you can actually leave your melee in between. You might have seen me do this already, but you can, if you're at close range, you can leave your melee in between hits to actually save ammo and deal more damage. His melee is probably one of the better ones in the game. You can, it's a 3-hit combo, but like, that was without a damage boost. That did about a quarter of this bot's health. So it's a pretty damn good melee, but it's not like the range is anything crazy either. So like, if you're at the range, you might as well just weave it in along with your shots, and you'll probably get a kill. Especially during the ultimate or whatever, and you're just constantly pressuring people, you can just, you know, weave in a couple melees there to deal the extra damage from the ult, and it does a fuck ton of damage. Now, my next tip is actually going to be make use of the team-up, which you might be thinking, what are you talking about? Gambit's just the anchor. Yeah, but the power comes in Rogue. Essentially, the Rogue Gambit team-up is stupidly good and makes Rogue instantly like one of the best characters in the game. It is absurd. If you can find a Rogue to play with, you are just going to dominate the lobby, because I don't have a clip of it right this second, but Gambit ult plus Rogue ultimate plus Rogue team up, there will be no survivors. Like, I've tried this multiple times. Essentially, you will give your Rogue the ultimate, and you will go in with her, and they fall like dominoes. It is probably the most fun you can have this game, and I highly recommend getting a Rogue to play with, because it is going to make your experience a billion times better playing Gambit than it already is. And the final tip I have for everyone is, if you're playing with your other support, have them ult first, honestly. Like, I know it depends on the situation, and this game is very reactionary. You're gonna have to ult at different times. But in an ideal world, your other support ults first, right? And you get that sustain out and you win the team fight. Then the next team fight, you can open up with Gambit ult, and then you will give them the increased ult charge from that, and hopefully get their ult back faster to react to the next big DPS ult or whatever that's coming. Because Gambit ult is not going to be able to out-heal DPS ults and such. It might have been able to before, but ever since they nerfed the healing over time, it's not going to be able to compete with that anymore. So just have your other support use their sustain ult for whatever is needed. Use that first, then you can pop your Gambit ult after or whatever the team fight is done and get that ult charge back, and you're basically back where you started, which is really nice. I think I actually talked about this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to go a little more further in detail about a Gambit versus Gambit situation, because let's be honest, in ranked, if Gambit's unbanned, odds are the other team is going to have a Gambit too, so you need to be the Gambit that comes out on top. And a lot of it comes down to his ultimate. You can use a lot of the things I've taught with like neutral play and such to help secure the neutral in the game, and, you know, get picks and stuff from playing off angles and such, and using his abilities that way and such. But a lot of it is going to come down to how you use your ultimate. What it comes down to is a giant cold war between two Gambits. Whoever pops first with the Gambit ult, if you don't have a really good DPS, fucking hell, a really good DPS ult to combo with the Gambit ult, the other Gambit is just going to pop the ult and take back all that space you took before. So the only world in which you're popping Gambit ult first into another Gambit ult, it is going to be if you have like a Gambit Star-Lord or a Gambit Magneto or something that you know is going to guarantee kills. Because otherwise, you know, you pop the ult, guess what? You guys take all this space, wahoo, yay, we're almost getting picks. But then Gambit pops his ult, and uh-oh, now all of a sudden they took all that space that you took, and you guys are dying because you had nothing to respond to that. So, my tip for when playing into other Gambits is just be mindful of the situation. You know, if you're queuing up with someone and you trust them to get picks during your ultimate, like if you have a Rogue with you or a Star-Lord or something, like if you know you're going to get picks out of your ultimate, then sure, go ahead, feel free to pop first. But otherwise, if you're ever unsure or, you know, you can't trust your team, just don't feel afraid to hold on to this, because the second their Gambit pops ult, you can react with yours, and you're the better Gambit, which means you can just go and jump straight in and kill his ass, and suddenly, you know, his Gambit ult is pointless. So just, yeah, be mindful when playing into other Gambits. I would not recommend ulting first unless you're absolutely confident that you're going to win that team fight. But otherwise, just, you know, don't be afraid to hold on to it, and then respond to their Gambit ult effectively, and steamroll them back. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the Gambit guide. I know that was probably a lot of information to take in and process, so if you don't get them right away, like, don't feel bad. Honestly, it's just gonna take a lot of time and practice. For me, the second it clicked for Gambit was when the muscle memory for which cards to use at which time actually started to kick in, and then I never started getting confused with any of them ever again. But that took a lot of time and a lot of playing Gambit, so it's gonna take time, but once he does click, you're gonna have so much fun. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment or contact me in some way. I'm always willing to help. And I hope this video was at least helpful to someone. Thank you anyone who actually watched this video all the way to this point. If you enjoyed it, then maybe give it a like and possibly subscribe. I don't know, I might upload more Marvel Rivals stuff, who knows. Thanks!